Farm Progress Broadcast presents This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry. Brought to you by Case IH. Solutions for every challenge. Equipment for every farm. Case IH, built by farmers.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us here for This Week in Agribusiness. I'm Mike Pearson. Next week, much of the agricultural community will be down in San Antonio, Texas for the 2026 Commodity Classic. 5 associations put on the event, including the American Soybean Association. Joining us today is Scott Metzger. He serves as president of the ASA this year. And Scott, thanks for taking the time to talk with us.
Hey, thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Now, next week, grower leaders involved with the American Soybean Association will be busy when they get to San Antonio. What's it like for a member and an officer in the association when you go to an event like this?
You know, it's kind of our pinnacle thing of the year that we go to. You have, all the other commodity groups are there. You've got a great trade show. You've got several educational opportunities throughout the whole Commodity Classic to go in and learn new things and meet new people, and the connections you make there are just so valuable.
They are. It's a really great way to bounce ideas off other producers. And Scott, there's a lot going on in the world of agriculture today. What's going to be up for discussion in those meeting rooms when those soybean leaders gather together this year?
Some of our top priorities are going to be the farm economy, farm inputs, biofuels, farm bill. Those are going to be coming to the top of the list of things we're going to be discussing. As well as this is the meeting we have at Commodity Classic is where we set our resolutions for the year. So we also have that as well.
That grassroots decision-making will take place. So after the Classic, we'll talk to you about what the ASA is focused on for the upcoming year. But you mentioned those educational opportunities. There are always people to learn from giving presentations at Commodity. Is there anything soybean focused as you look out to this year's schedule?
Yeah, there are. There's several sessions that are regarding soybeans, whether it's inputs and fertility, seeding rates, you name it, it's going to be there on the making producers, making sure they're going to be profitable for the year, and giving them new ideas and things to think about to take back to the farm for their following year.
Yeah, it's that sharing of ideas that takes place. And as you mentioned, American Soybean Association has their annual meeting, as well as National Sorghum Producers, National Corn Growers Association, the Association of Equipment Managers, and the National Association of Wheat Growers. Do you get a chance to work with those other organizations? Do the leaders of those different groups get together at Classic?
Yeah, we do. During our general session, we'll all be up on stage for it, and they'll ask us a series of questions for it, and then during the show we'll interact with them as well during various times, just walking around on the trade floors and stuff. But yeah, we kind of make it a point to interact with everyone. I'm fortunate enough the president of the National Corn Growers Association lives 20 minutes from me and is a good friend of mine, so that makes that connection really nice that we're so close and phone call away or just drive and see each other. But obviously don't have that with the others, but fortunate that we have that connection.
Agriculture is a small world. We learn that at events like this. Scott Metzger, thank you so much for taking the time to fill us in on Commodity Classic. And folks, you can learn more at commodityclassic.com. Fight grease, dust, and contaminants on your equipment with a Hot Sea pressure washer. Visit hotsea.com to find a local dealer, and remember, nothing cleans like a Hot Sea. For this week's market segment, we're talking with Dave Weber. He's the senior animal protein analyst with Terrain. And Dave, thanks for taking the time to join us again.
Thanks for having us, Mike.
Let's dive into this cattle market this week. We saw Monday's trade open with a little bit more bullish sentiment, gapped open from last Friday's trade. Dave, what happened over the weekend to spur this cattle market higher?
Well, we saw the South Texas, or the South trade, especially in Texas, take a leap higher. One pen of cattle traded in the 250s. That got us kind of primed for what might lead to this week. We haven't seen trade yet so far here on Thursday, but the sentiment as we left last week, I would call modestly to sharply higher. on the fed cattle trade in the South. The South's going to be the leader here for a minute. We're finally getting to where we're in the really tight supplies down there, and we'll see that play out as we go through this week. Futures had to play catch up. They're still behind from a basis standpoint, so there's our gap. I guess we've had two record closes on front month futures so far this week, and maybe a third today.
All right, Dave, so seasonally, if this were a standard cattle market or cattle market year, what would we expect to see this time of year from a seasonal perspective in the live cattle trade?
It would be kind of the doldrums here between the last of the Valentine's Day buy and blip we have early February for a little better beef demand. We're going to go here through February into the Lenten season and then into March, where we're waiting for grilling season to get going.
All right, so we are seeing a lot of strength out there. Consumers are still apt to go to that meat counter and buy some beef. That's supporting live cattle prices. Feeder cattle also jumped higher to start this week. Dave, what's the story there? Do we have any updates on the border?
Yeah, no updates on the border. Still closed. There's been some more cases as we've gone through the last couple of weeks, moving not particularly closer to the border, but more there in that kind of 150 to 200 mile away from the border. A few more cases there. No real resolution coming. We did get the new air base and distribution facility put together in South Texas. So that'll be starting production up. And I think that's an optimistic a thing happening in the marketplace. We're going to have more sterile flies coming at us and start distribution across South Texas and then augment what's going on down there in Mexico.
Okay, so we are still making some progress against that New World screwworm, but man, those sightings closer to the border are certainly driving some concern. Dave, let's talk about managing this rally. Both fats and feeders, we broke hard October, November. Since then, the trend has been our friend to the upside. Can we retest those highs that we were setting back in mid-October on either fats or feeders, in your mind?
I think we can, and we look at a couple of reasons why. On feed numbers are going to dwindle. Expected marketings continue to decline. If we look at Nebraska in particular, that's where the bigger volume of year-over-year change is in terms of cattle. Those start to tighten as we go into March and April. If we look at the Nebraska Cattlemen's Cattle on Feed survey, they've got expected marketings or cattle expected to market Feb, March, April, and beyond down 10%. So that doesn't count the carryover supply that we've got. These cattle on the front end, we've been dragging our feet, maybe trying to put some extra days in, but the underlying supply is tightening. It's already tight in the South, and that's gonna help us move fat cattle prices in particular higher. In the meantime, the board's going to be playing catch up. I think the live trade is going to lead here for a minute, and then we'll finally eventually, maybe attract some outside money, and the open interest will improve on the fat cattle contracts. In the meantime, the feeder market's completely reactionary here. We're in tight supplies. We won't really see any cattle moving off of wheat pasture anytime soon. We'll probably see those start to move late March, early April. Gains are going well. Granted, there's dry conditions in some of that country, especially the further west you get. Those cattle maybe moving around a little bit, but still tight supply. Underlying supplies aren't very big. If we look at the number of cattle turned out on wheat pasture, up from a year ago, but we did that moving cattle out of other parts of the country. So
more of a shuffling of cattle than a finding new cattle. Dave, speaking of which, when we come back, we'll dig into the Farm Credit Cattle Industry Study that Terrain recently completed. Let's talk herd rebuilding through 2026. We'll have more with Dave Weber in just a moment. Fight grease, dust, and contaminants on your equipment with a Hotsy pressure washer. Visit Hotsy.com to find a local dealer, and remember, nothing cleans like a Hotsy. We're back talking about the cattle market with Dave Weber, Senior Animal Protein Analyst with Terrain. And Dave, I understand Terrain recently completed a cow-calf producer survey among Farm Credit members. Fill us in. How widespread was this survey? How many producers did you talk to?
So we got 1,050 responses back, covering 10 associations in 28 states.
All right, well, that is a big group. That's a pretty accurate representation of the industry. What did you learn? How is this industry going to rebuild?
Well, we found that the expansion's not very robust, and but it is entering into plans. So we found about a 50-50 split between producers in the survey that expanded breeding female numbers in 2025, and there's about 43% that plan to do so in 2026. but a smaller percentage as we go into 2027, and maybe more uncertainty as we go. Part of that's driven by what's going on with grazing resources, availability of pasture, and the drought forecast has certainly got a lot of producers worried.
And so that was going to be my question for these producers, especially those in drought territories, as they look forward and they're not retaining heifers. Are they buying cows if they're looking to expand?
Yeah, that's what we found. The producers that expanded numbers, breeding female numbers on their ranches and farms during 2025, mostly used cows. So those were, if you equate that to the inventory report, those cows were already in the inventory. They just got new mailing addresses. So we've moved around cows a fair bit, but not added a lot of heifers. We had about a 60-40 split between operations, or the numbers of growth that were cows already in the herd and moved versus keeping heifer calves back.
Now, as you look forward, 50% increase their breeding last year. Do they expect to see similar numbers this year, or more leaning into heifer retention as we get into 26?
Actually, the for sure plans for 2026 dropped a little bit. We're down to about 35% or so of producers were for sure going to add females during 2026, and a smaller percentage as we went into 2027.
All right, Dave. Now, one of the things I've heard is this cattle market has rallied over the past 4 years, is that the market needs this kind of numbers to bring that next generation back home to the ranch, bring some youth back into the cattle sector. For the survey, how old were the respondents? Do we see that age reflected in the number of folks running cattle?
Yeah, we did, Mike. We did add some demographic questions. We found average producer age in our survey was 57.7 years for the decision maker on the operation. The Census of Ag, for reference, in 2022, average age of farmers is 58. So not a lot of variance there, but we didn't see producer age as we asked those that didn't grow. Producer age wasn't one of the top half of reasons why they didn't grow.
All right. Dave, before we let you go, for folks who want to dig deep into the numbers in this survey, where would you send them to look at the full results?
Yeah, if you go to terrainag.com, you can find all of our reports. If you go to the series tab at the top, or sectors, if you go to beef, or if you go to the Insights series, you can find the report.
Fantastic. Dave Weber, Senior Animal Protein Analyst with Terrain, thanks for joining us this week.
You bet. Thank you, Mike.
Agriculture meteorologist Greg Solier now brings us his farm weather forecast for the week ahead.
Well, Greg, as you look at the forecast, any shot for moisture out in the Pacific Northwest over the next week?
Yeah, the pattern continues on, quite active, quite busy, but still with all the rain and the snow of late, still some of these snowpacks and snow piles off the Cascades, the Rockies, the Sierra, no better than at best about 75% of normal, and running ahead of basically everybody else as parts of Big Sky Country, just 30% of normal into the southern sections of the Cascades. So the moisture machine is back into play, and we might as well get it there while we can, because we're kind of winding out of the wet and stormy season as it applies to the western states. So one weather system here. The cold air is still evident, but moderating. Didn't help that big blizzard off east across the Arrowhead of Minnesota last week, with another weather system coming ashore. So snow levels still moderately high, but at least it's moisture as well, with coastal rain and valley rain expected in Willamette Valley. Some snow across the higher peaks of the Cascades, shifting east across areas of the northern Rockies, and another weather system making its way with kind of a rain-snow mix across the northern sections of the plains. So some additional opportunities for some soil moisture. Dryness and drought, we're still working at it. And there's still this hot dome of high pressure that we track in the summertime across Old Mexico. So some of these spring training sites that had some delays there last week, well, the sunshine is back into play. The warmth in the valleys of California, most of the cold air and moisture lined up across Nebraska on northward, and the showers and thunderstorms trying to get going as well into the south end of the winter wheat belt, with dryness and drought related issues there. And of course, that's where all that mud came into the Midwest with some of those showers that we had last week because of the fires that are still going on into parts of Nebraska as well as Oklahoma and sections of Texas. Anyway, new shower activity and a couple of thunderstorms too, Mike, with another cold air system coming aloft into parts of California and Southwest later in the week.
Well, I understand the northern Corn Belt dropped back into winter here recently. Greg, do you see any severe threats over the next week?
Well, I tell you, it was a rude awakening coming off some of that mild spring-like environment, and it's back to reality temperature-wise here. The dig out coming off 2 feet of snow into parts of Minnesota, into the boundary waters and sections out of the west, and no shortage of weather systems and a very active weather pattern here. Temperatures back to seasonal norms. The moisture picks up, including some rainfall over the dry, drought-ridden areas. If we're not doing field work, we might as well, at least as it applies to the Corn Belt, try to nibble away at dryness and drought-related issues, and that'll be the story with some showers, a couple of thunderstorms, much like last week, and another mild return into the eastern and southern Corn Belt, the cold air up to the Sioux, and still a touch of winter, plenty of it, by the way, across the Dakotas, back in parts of Big Sky Country. So it is an active mid to late winter weather pattern that continues on, but the feel of almost summertime continuing on into the Rio Grande Valley, some shower activity into parts of western and southern Texas. Just imagine, what was it, 6 weeks ago, we had snow and ice and cold weather concerns into South Texas citrus, cool high pressure across the Delta region and into sections of the Mid-South, and very little change expected. The warmth relative to wintertime, it's almost early springtime through Mexico. The warmth back into play across the southern plains, and we trip off additional showers and thunderstorms and some additional moisture relief for some of the dry, drought-ridden areas of the winter wheat fields in the southern plains.
Now, of course, New England has seen some moisture this season. Are they set to get any more?
Some degree of it, yes. And by the way, here is the latest system, a nor'easter. There's more moisture for you, and we've kind of made some significant inroads to dryness and drought there. But the worst of it here applies to the eastern Corn Belt. And we did get some moisture, but it's still running from east central Illinois into the Maumee Valley of northwest Ohio with a new weather system back across the western sections of the complex. That, along with the cold air up to the Sioux, should get a pretty active weather pattern with some snow melt and more rain back into parts of the lower sections of the Great Lakes region, on top of, again, the snowpack that has basically diminished itself and is non-existent over many areas of the western through the southern Corn Belt, with some rain for the Ohio Valley, cold weather up towards the Sioux, and another rain snow system back across western reaches of the Corn Belt. Over the southeastern part of the country, the back end of that nor'easter has a couple of snowflakes into the southern sections of the Appalachians, gusty winds, no real substantial cold, but a chill in the air relative to the calendar date. Sunshine across much of the Delta back in the southeastern plains, but as the week wears on, showers and thunderstorms break out here. Warmth returns to areas of the mid-Atlantic region and northward up towards the Ohio Valley. We'll have that long-range forecast well into the month of March coming on up.
Closed captioning this week is brought to you by Farm Progress. Their team of experts reports on innovative solutions and essential information for your farm business. Visit farmprogress.com to stay updated. Fertilizer is a key issue for American farmers, and they face a squeeze on two different fronts. On the one hand, it's expensive. It makes up a very large part of a farmer's planting budget. On the other hand, it can be mobile in the soil. It can run off into waters, lakes, and drinking water. For those reasons, it's important to stabilize that nitrogen once it's on the ground. I had the chance recently to speak with Taylor Ferguson, the nitrogen stabilization account manager at Corteva, and I asked him what are some of the best tips this time of year to help farmers get the most bang for their nitrogen buck.
This time of year, there's a lot of things happening with potential weather rolling through. In some parts of the country, there was a lot of fall fertilizer put on with nitrogen. And so going out and doing some soil testing to see how much nitrogen is still going to be available in that soil is going to be really important as we get closer to that springtime frame.
And how close to planting do you like to have that soil test in your back pocket so you can make those preparations?
Yeah, I would say anywhere from a month to 2 weeks ahead of planting is going to be really key to know exactly how much nitrogen we have. That helps us be flexible when it comes to making decisions later on the growing season if we want to overlay nitrogen applications further on in the year.
That makes a lot of sense. And of course, so you want to test for your nitrate level. Is there anything else you encourage folks to test for while they're getting that soil test done?
Yeah, so nitrate is very critical because that lets you know how much nitrogen has converted from that positive ammonium form into that leachable nitrate form. But ammonium is also going to be very key because that helps you realize how much of that nitrogen is going to be laying out extended availability for that crop earlier in the growing season.
So Taylor, you mentioned we had a lot of growers get out there last fall. We had decent weather. They were able to pull on a lot of anhydrous. Of course, now it's made it through the winter time. How much would you expect to have volatilized in a given season? Or what do folks need to think about with regard to losses during the winter time or spring rains?
Yeah, so every year is going to vary, obviously. We've had a lot of snow this year compared to maybe some prior years, and there's maybe some rain in the forecast. It's very possible that we've lost a significant amount of it if it wasn't stabilized with a proven nitrogen stabilizer. And so when we think about using those products here in the springtime, it's going to overall extend our nitrogen availability further into that growing season where it's really critical and needed.
Well, let's talk about those stabilizers. What do you recommend for growers across the country from Corteva to stabilize?
Yeah. So from Corteva, we have Inserve and Instinct NextGen. So Inserve is applied with anhydrous ammonia and Instinct NextGen with UAN, urea, and liquid manure. And both of those products are a nitropyrin-based active ingredient or our Optonite technology. And they essentially extend the overall availability of your ammonium nitrogen 6 to 8 weeks into the growing season.
What does that mean from a practical perspective for that corn crop that's growing out there? Extending it 6 to 8 weeks, how much bang for the buck do we get?
Yeah, so typically we see a 10+% return on, or 10+% ROI on that investment. And so roughly 10 bushels is typically what we see in the application. And overall, that's going to increase the amount of positive ammonium form nitrogen in your soil further on in the growing season. And so at a tassel corn plant, there's still 30% of the nitrogen needs that need to be taken up by that plant, where by using one of those two products, it's going to have that nitrogen right there available in that root zone for that crop to take it up and decrease the amount of leaching that's going to be possibly happening.
So, Taylor, if we've got folks who have not yet used a nitrogen stabilizer in their nitrogen application process, what do they need to know to handle it to best make sure it's doing what it needs to do in those fields?
Yeah, so going back to the soil testing perspective, looking at that positive ammonium form in a soil test, and then also talking to your local retailer or your Corteva territory manager is a great way to get connected and really learn about these products specifically and those recommendations in your general area.
That makes a lot of sense. So we can get very specific with our targeted rates here. Let's talk about the data that supports this kind of technology. You mentioned Optonite. How long has that been in the Corteva toolbox?
Yeah, so Optonite technology or nitropyrin is the active ingredient name, has been in the marketplace for 50 years now. This is actually our 50th year anniversary or 50th year birthday, you could say. And what we've seen over the over the last many years, we have thousands and thousands of trials, but we typically see a 10% return from a bushel perspective. So roughly 10 plus bushels per acre is what we see when we have these in a trial situation. And over the last couple of years, doing some split application nitrogen applications with Instinct or Inserve is where we've seen the best bang for your buck.
Okay, let's talk about what comes after the spring application. As you know, farming is complicated. Weather can throw us a curveball. Let's say we get a lot of heavy rain. We're mudding in this crop. Now that side dress becomes so much more important. Do you recommend a stabilization product while we're side dressing as well, or is the plant able to absorb it quick enough?
Great question. We absolutely recommend a stabilizer with the side dress application. And for the reason for that is if you look at our data or you look at the data across the Midwest, we typically see and get the most of our rainfall during that May, June, July timeframe for the entire year. And so that's when there's going to be a lot of converting in those hot, warm soils and going to be a lot of nitrate nitrogen in that soil. So when we get that rainfall, we have a high possibility for leaching. By using Instinct or Inserve in those late applications in the spring, we're going to delay that overall process and keep that nitrogen there available for that crop.
All right, it's all about extending that availability, making sure that crop has access to these nutrients that we're paying to put into the field. It makes sense to protect them and preserve them, and make sure we are getting the best bang for the buck. Now, Taylor, you mentioned reaching out to your local dealer. Remind us one more time of the website for Corteva. How can we get plugged in to that dealer network if we're not yet connected?
Yeah, so nitrogenstabilizers.com is the website with Corteva, and you can find all the information on there, or again, reach out to your local territory manager or retail partner.
Taylor Ferguson, the Nitrogen Stabilizer Strategic Account Manager with Corteva Agriscience. Thanks for joining us this week and to fill us in on the technology in nitrogen stabilization.
Thank you.
Farm Progress Broadcast presents This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry. Brought to you by Pioneer. Thank you, farmers.
Welcome back, everyone, to This Week in Agribusiness. It's time to turn our focus to 2025 sorghum production. Recently, I had the chance to talk to Kenny Rafchett. He farms outside Dalhart, Texas, and he won the National Sorghum Producers Yield Contest with a yield of 237.15 bushels per acre. I asked him just what it took to get to that number.
We fudged our population. We went up to 95,000 population compared to 80 the year before. And we planted it in Oklahoma, and it's a little higher elevation, cooler nights. And we actually caught 15 to 16 inches of rain up on that farm this year, and probably 5 to 6 inches is what we watered through the sprinkler. So we had to run fertilizer through our sprinkler instead of side dressing.
Let's talk a little bit about how you make the decision to start the year. One of the most important things is picking that seed that's going to go in the ground. And how do you make that decision in the springtime?
We have a meeting with my seed salesman, Parker Noel and John Brewer, and we go over trials and plots and go from there.
What else has kept you planting Pioneer seeds all these years, whether it's sorghum, corn, or wheat?
The customer service for my seed salesman, it's above and beyond. Without them, I couldn't do it.
Now, of course, you've been a loyal customer for a long time with Pioneer, and 2026 is a big year for Pioneer as they celebrate their 100th anniversary. What does that mean to you as a partner?
It's an honor to be involved with Pioneer over this long of a period of time. I've farmed here since '99, and we've always planted Pioneer. We've dabbled with others, but it's always Pioneer that yields, and nothing competes with it here.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And of course, after a year like last year, when you get that 237 bushel sorghum yield for the contest, it takes a team to grow a crop like that. Kenny, and is there anyone else on the team you'd like to thank to make that a possibility?
Yeah, I've got a big circle. I've got Parker Noel and John Brewer, my seed salesman, and my agronomist, Brian Taylor, and Stephen Schumacher. And then I've got several partners that I farm here with. And one of them is Tom Vogel and Monty Simmerly. And we make decisions together. It's not just me solely making the decisions. It's a big circle.
Of course, 2026 will be on us pretty quickly for that growing season. Will you be entering in the NSP Yield Contest again?
Yes, I've got 50 acres on a Texas farm that we are going to enter again. Year before last, we actually were the Bend Buster. And last year we planted that circle of sorghum in Oklahoma on one of our farms. So now we're going to go back and try it in Texas. I want to get the world record is what I want to get.
Well, we certainly wish you the best of luck, Kenny. Hopefully 2026 is the year you bring that world record back home to Dollar. Thank you so much for speaking with us and sharing your enthusiasm for Pioneer's 100th anniversary.
Thank you.
Agriculture meteorologist Greg Solier returns now with his extended farm weather forecast for the country.
Well, Greg, earlier in the program, you mentioned the moisture this week. Sounds like it's going to be active. Who's going to see what?
Along with the snow and the rain this time of the year across areas of the deep south and southeastern states where we got some corn planting going on into parts of southern Texas. The moisture pattern is wide and expansive, complete with maybe, again, severe weather. Had some of that last week into parts of Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. A little farther south on the rain snow line from time to time, and we'll get another significant plume of moisture across the western reaches of the country. You can take that number and probably multiply by a factor of 10, and there's your moisture quantity in the form of snow across the Cascades. So some late season opportunities there. A couple of thunderstorms later in the week over the southwestern reaches of the country, and as the week wears on, another expansive area of moisture, 1/2 to 1, some spots close to 2 inches. So no shortage of it, including still wintertime on the maps and charts of the upper Midwest and back into the northern plains.
What's your temperature outlook for that first full week in March?
Still some of that warmth here that set some records over the past couple of weeks over parts of the eastern and southern plains and Corn Belt locales. Probably still in that category as we roll into the start of meteorological springtime, and the warmth all the way up into the St. Lawrence River Valley. So some snow melt there. A little troughiness along and west of the divide, and that generates this particular scenario. Some welcome moisture late season, and we need it. These watershed issues are still building with, again, limited snowpack across the west. So some good news here. Down across Texas into the Ohio Valley and southeastern states, some severe weather potential and still a busy weather pattern for the upper Midwest with regard to snowfall. And again, some drought relief is basically the story going forward across the Corn Belt.
Does that story continue as we get into that March 9th week?
Yeah, that cold air trough is really not going anywhere. It's going to be a little more progressive as the month wears on. A little slip to the east along with the warm weather here. Pretty good finger of cold air from the plains all the way to California, the Pacific Northwest. So again, systems drop into the northwest, into the areas of the Oklahoma Panhandle, swing to the north and northeast. More late season snow for the upper Midwest, rain for the eastern and southern Corn Belt, and per usual this time of the year, heading to a mid-March, severe weather potential from about the Ohio River on southward.
Well, take us into springtime. What do you see the week of March 16th?
No springtime here on the weather maps and charts. Don't panic if you're good. You want to get in the fields as best you can. We're going to try and get soil moisture improvement, drought improvement, then get at it here as we head through the key planting dates across the Corn Belt and parts of the plains. So a pretty good shot of cold. Spring equinox on the 20th, close to about 9:45 in the morning. Southeastern states is warm. The weather pattern is still busy. Pacific Northwest, late season storms for the southern plains into the upper Midwest. More snowfall there along with rain shower and thunderstorm activity for the Ohio on southward.
Our Farm Progress Update is brought to you by Grinnell Mutual. Farming is complicated. Our comprehensive policies make it simpler. Protect your tomorrow from the unexpected with Grinnell Mutual. Joining us this week is Josh Bethke. He serves as the policy editor here with Farm Progress. He's had his hands full keeping track of what's coming out of Washington, D.C. Mr. Bethke, thanks for joining us this week.
Hey, always good to chat with you, Mike.
So we did see last week Congressman G.T. Thompson of Pennsylvania, chair of the House Ag Committee, released the text of a proposed farm bill. Josh, fill us in. Was this warmly received in D.C.?
This is, third time we've tried to get a full farm bill. This expired in 2023. This time it's a little bit different. As you know, a lot of the Title I commodity funding and some of the nutrition funding was addressed in the big, beautiful bill last year. So it's been dubbed the skinny farm bill. It's still, I think, over 800 pages. So a lot of things to go through in there. We have, some of the highlights. We have higher limits to guaranteed loans. We have some additional specialty crop funding. And there's also some language in it that try to counteract some of the things like pesticide labeling requirements that some states have put in. Prop 12, as you know, it has requirements for animal gestation crates. So there's a lot going on there. It's unclear where this is going to go at this point.
That Prop 12 issue, this is something that the pork industry has been debating back and forth since, I believe, 2019. Josh, what are we proposing here in this farm bill to do with Prop 12?
Yeah, well, basically, Proposition 12, voted in by California voters, puts limits or certain requirements on gestation crates, other living conditions for hogs and other animals. The language in this version of the Farm Bill would not allow any states to put additional requirements in. It's something, like you said, the major cattle groups have been pushing for a while. However, there are some, I think it's like 30% of hog farmers have actually, gone through with adhering to these requirements. So there's some controversy, but overall, this is something that the ag world generally welcomes and would like to see, less restrictions on the state level.
All right. Now, we do know one of the things that did not get tackled in that One Big Beautiful Bill Act was CRP. Josh, were there any changes to that 27 million acreage cap for CRP enrollment this time?
That remains in place at this time. The 27 million remains as is, so no changes there. The Conservation Reserve Program was reauthorized, but no acreage cap changes in this farm bill.
How did Democrats respond? Could this be a bipartisan bill, or is there some pushback?
I think going into this, there was a hope that this would be a bipartisan bill. But based on what Ranking Member Angie Craig from the House Ag Committee says, this looks like a non-starter for Democrats. She says there's poison pills in it, and she doesn't think it's a good place to start from. So there's definitely going to be an uphill climb to get this passed. It doesn't sound like the Democrats are on board, and with the slim margins in Congress, that's going to make it very difficult for anything like this to pass.
All right, we'll continue to watch these discussions about a farm bill. Whether or not we get one remains to be seen. But Josh Bethke will keep his eye on the progress in Washington, D.C. and keep that progress reported in Farm Progress. Josh, thank you so much for joining us this week.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mike. Always good to be here.
Now on This Week in Agribusiness, it's Max's Tractor Shed, where we spotlight another great American farm tractor. The young woman and her father were very busy in the midst of the harvest season last autumn when they discovered on a farm a John Deere 1010, and she said, I need that tractor. Max's Tractor Shed is brought to you by Ag Spray Equipment, a leader in liquid application equipment and parts, and the home of the DT Series trailer. From turnkey solutions to field-proven performance, they help maximize your spraying operation. Learn more at agspray.com. Breezy Sloniker told me that after she and her dad found this John Deere 1010 last autumn, they spent the rest of the afternoon on the 2A radios in the tractor and combine cabs visiting about this tractor and its history that is a little bit uncertain. Let's look at this tractor together. On this John Deere 1010, Breezy said there are some spots where there are signs of orange and yellow paint. And it made her wonder, maybe it had been a county highway tractor, or perhaps it was used as a tug at an airport to move planes around. There are no hydraulics on this tractor, no three-point hitch, and it will need some work. She said the brakes will need some attention, the wiring may need some help, and yes, there's junk in the fuel tank, as you might expect of an old tractor made in 1962. But Breezy, I would simply tell you that every one of those repairs that you manage and handle along the way will simply add to the tractor's story, one that's a little bit in question at the moment. It'll be interesting to see how these pieces come together. For Breezy Sloniker with a John Deere 1010 at Plymouth, Indiana. Here now with his weekly report from Big Iron is Mark Stock.
Well, hello, Max. We start on Monday, February the 23rd with the Lowe and Hanson Partnership Retirement Sale. A 2024 John Deere S770 Combine, a John Deere 9420R four-wheel drive tractor, 2023 year model Kinsey 24-row 30-inch planter. On Tuesday, February the 24th, the Ruby Huber Retirement Sale featuring a 2023 John Deere S780 four-wheel drive Combine, John Deere 9520R four-wheel drive, John Deere 9570R four-wheel drive. On Wednesday, February the 25th, the Webster Daughters LLC. They'll sell a Landau 23-foot folding tandem disc, a John Deere 6190R mechanical front tractor. On Thursday, February the 26th, the Bill Kirsch Retirement Sale. They have two John Deere 8310R mechanical front tractors. Also on February the 26th is the TNT Farms Retirement Sale, selling a John Deere 8R 410 mechanical front tractor. There's a 2020 year model Klaus Lexion 8700 track four-wheel drive combine. On Friday, February the 27th, Keppel Acres Farms Retirement Sale features a Hagie STS-12 self-propelled sprayer, a John Deere 8R 280 mechanical front tractor, John Deere S770 combine. And also on Friday is the Hillside Farms Inc. Retirement Sale, selling a John Deere S670 combine, John Deere 8295R mechanical front tractor. Big Iron will be at the Commodity Classic in San Antonio, Texas. We'll see you there.
Our FFA Chapter Tribute is brought to you by Geringhoff. Check out the new XFR 50 Draper with 3 times more flexibility than its closest competitor at Geringhoff.com. Geringhoff, proudly built in the American heartland. This week, we're getting to know Cadence Wooten. Cadence serves as the FFA State Treasurer for Illinois this year. And Cadence, thank you so much for talking with us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I understand your path to FFA looked a little different. Talk to us about your chapter.
Yeah, so I went to a chapter that wasn't from my high school. I started high school as a freshman, not having ag classes or FFA at my high school. So if I wanted to take them, I had to be bused over 15 minutes to the school next to me. It was kind of a fluke. I had a couple holes in my schedule, and my guidance counselor asked me, "Hey, like, do you want to come do this? It'll be a 15-minute bus ride." And I was like, why not? Meet some new people, go to a new school, experience something different, and I got hooked. But by the end of my by the start of my senior year, DeLand Weldon now has their own FFA chapter in ag classes, which I'm very, very excited to see. I finished out my time at Blue Ridge, but I'm very excited that they have that opportunity now at their own school.
That is exciting. Of course, now you're serving as state treasurer for the Illinois FFA. And what are you excited about as you look forward to the remainder of this school season?
Yeah, we have one more conference tomorrow, and that'll wrap that up. But I'm very excited to see banquets. I loved my chapter banquet, and it was something I always looked forward to. So being able to be a keynote speaker or just enjoy and spend some time with FFA members during their own banquet is very exciting.
Absolutely. And Cadence, do you hope to find a career in agriculture long term?
Yes, so next year I'll be majoring in ag education, but I want a minor in ag communication. So doing something like exactly what you're doing right now would not be far from a dream job for me.
Well, we need more good people to represent the voices of agriculture. Cadence, we wish you the absolute best of luck, and thanks for talking with us this week.
Thank you.
Chad Colby's Tech segment is brought to you by AGI, supporting your expertise with industry-leading grain handling, storage, conditioning, and monitoring solutions. AGI, we're right there with you. Well, no big surprise at the National Farm Machinery Show, Chad Colby was asked a lot about drones. He joins us now with this week's Technology Report.
Drones have moved from nice to have to real working tools on farm. And this spring, farmers aren't just asking if drones fit their operation, they're asking about how to use them. The first step is scouting, because a lot of farmers, this is really the easiest place to start. Really compact systems. This is a kit from a company called flyingag.com. It's about $2,000. And look at this. It's very compact, has a great flight time. It doesn't need your cell phone. It comes with everything you need in the kit. And what I really like about this, it's super easy to deploy, and it does exactly what it's meant to do. Take some great pictures, and maybe that is of your farm equipment, but maybe it's of your cattle or just some general scouting. This is a great tool and a perfect place to start. But once you've moved beyond visual scouting, now it's time to do a little bit more. And for those of you that are interested in mapping, there's some great tools on the market that have been around a long time. This is a company here that's showing their software called Drone Deploy. And yes, I've used it. It'll do stand counts. You can get that data back at your desk and do a lot of great things with it. You'll need an upgraded drone for that. The Matrice 4E is the newest version of that. It's a fantastic system. If you have a 3E, that's the one here on the left. That'll work very well for this too. You can see there's some pretty big differences in them, including the screen. And of course, you have to talk about sprayer drones. This week, I talked to Corey Jacobs from flyingag.com, and he had to send me a video of his new truck, which looks great, by the way. And he was telling me that after 10 years of being in the drone business, that there's so much technology around this, and we're just really scratching the surface of what these sprayer drones can do on the farm, whether that's liquid or dry. And I'll be back this spring to take a deeper look at some real-world applications.
Thank you, Chad. It's incredible. They continue to improve the technology on those drones year in and year out. Of course, we look forward later this spring to seeing some updates on sprayer drones in the field from our friend Chad Colby. As farmers are preparing to get into their 2026 growing season, condition of the soil and making sure that field is clean is tantamount. And of course, for organic farmers, it's even more important. Well, joining me now to discuss a new tool, perhaps in these farmers' toolbox, is Mike Newland. Mike serves as the Director for Agricultural Business Development at the Propane Education and Research Council. Mike, thank you so much for talking with us.
Thanks, Mike. Good to see you.
How are farmers using propane to prep their fields or get them clean?
Yeah, back a couple years ago, we started a project out in California with Dr. Fenimore. Dr. Fenimore spent a lot of his career researching steam and how to use steam to replace methyl bromide in a lot of the applications. So he's using steam to control soil nematodes. It's also controlling fusarium in vegetable crops. So it's a self-propelled machine, injects steam into that top layer of soil. We're actually sterilizing weed seeds along the way. So it's a very environmentally friendly way to control weeds, nematodes, and some of the soil-borne pests that they fight.
You mentioned it's replacing methyl bromide. Why are farmers looking to get away from methyl bromide?
Yeah, if you don't deal with methyl bromide, that's an okay thing. In this case, it's a very effective tool, but it's hazardous to humans and the people that are around it. So a lot of that use and application, folks who have homes in those areas have restrictions on going back into their homes. Workers have restrictions going into those fields after treatment. So it's a very friendly way to come up with a new and better solution.
Of course, we love talking gear on this program. I think most farmers do. Talk to me about the machine. How wide of an area can it sterilize as it runs down the field?
Yeah, so the unit currently, we're steaming raised beds. So the beds are made. We've got a plate that goes across that. It's shaped like that raised bed. We're injecting with knives. Essentially, it's a continuous operation. It's a self-propelled unit. It's actually a remote-controlled unit. It's a very large remote-controlled unit. So we're injecting into that top 4 or 5 inches currently. The really neat thing is, though, there's a second unit that's done now for strawberry production, and it injects much deeper. We're going to target probably 10 to 12 inches of injection, and it's a much different process, but we're still heating that soil to about 158 degrees. And that's the kind of the magic number to make it all work.
So you mentioned a couple of years, Machine 1 has been out there in the fields. Machine 2 is coming online for this season. What's been the response of the farmers who have had a chance to try it?
Yeah, great response. That unit's actually made to go on a drop deck trailer. It's been to Arizona a couple times for the lettuce planting season down south. All those units, it's been performing very well. We've tried it in carrots, onions, lettuce, fresh flower farms as well. And it's done incredibly well. So the effectiveness is plus 90% as far as weed goes, weed sterilization. So we think the technology is sound, it's exciting, it's brand new, it takes demonstrations and people seeing it to respond to it.
We might see more of these soil steamers out there across the country in the years to come. Mike, if we've got viewers who are interested, they want to explore this in a little more depth, where would you send them for additional information?
I'd go to our website. Propane.com is the website for our organization. We actually have videos of the machine running on our site. So go to propane.com, search for the soil steam page, and you can see it for yourself.
Fantastic, folks. Check that out. Mike Newland, Director of Agricultural Business Development with PERC. Thank you so much for joining us this week.
Thanks, Mike.
And thank you for joining us here as well. Be sure to catch us next time, right here for This Week in Agribusiness. This Week in Agribusiness is recorded in the Strauss Studio. Family owned since 1948 and trusted by pros worldwide, Strauss makes gear that works as hard as you do. Tough, functional, and resilient. This isn't just workwear, it's gear engineered to perform. Gear up now at Strauss.com.
This Week in Agribusiness is produced by 22 Creative Group and has been a presentation of Farm Progress Broadcast. We invite you to visit us online at agbizweek.com.